Alright, first I want you guys to turn to the back of your notes and we're going to make a quick correction. In this part of your notes, look under where it says Khan Academy. You'll see factoring quadratics 1 and factoring quadratics 2. In your notes, I want you to make this change. Change factoring quadratics 1 and factoring quadratics 2. Alright, problem 1. X squared plus 5x equals 24. This is a review from yesterday. We're going to take 24. We don't want that 24 to be there. We want a 0. To get rid of the 24, we are going to need to add negative 24 to both sides of our equation. Doing this, we'll get a 0 over here. And over here, I'm going to carry down my x squared plus 5x. I'm going to write that before I write my plus negative 24. And then I'll put my plus negative 24 after the 5x. Now I am going to factor this. I'll write my parentheses. I'll fill in my x's because they multiply to x squared. And then I'll think of all the numbers to multiply to negative 24. I'm going to choose one of those pairs to fill in these blanks. Which pair will I choose? I'm going to choose this pair. And the reason why is because when I multiply my outer terms, negative 3 and x, I get negative 3x. When I multiply my inner terms, I get positive 8x. And when I combine like terms and add those, I get my middle term, which is 5x, which is what I started with. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my two equations from the two factors. So when I say two factors, this is one factor, this is my other factor, so I'm going to write my two equations from those two factors. The first equation will be x plus 8 equals 0. The second equation will be with my second factor, x plus negative 3 equals 0. Then I'm going to draw my rivers and solve these equations. My solutions are x equals negative 8 and x equals 3. No check today. Check vacation. Problem 2. X squared plus 5x plus 10. What will I do first here? First, I need to get rid of this 24. I'm going to do that by adding negative 24 to both sides. (24) plus negative 24 is going to give me 0. And then over here, x squared plus 5x plus negative 14. Once again, I have my x squared, then my term with x, and my term with no x is listed last. Next, I'm going to factor this. Next, I'm going to list all the numbers that multiply to negative 14. And I'm going to decide what is going to go in those blanks. Which pair is going to go in those blanks? The pair that will fill those blanks will be negative 2 and 7. When I have negative 2 and 7 in those blanks, and I multiply my outer terms, I get negative 2x. When I multiply my inner terms, I get positive 7x. And when I add them together, I get positive 5x, which is my middle term in my original equation. The next thing I'm going to do is write the two equations from the two factors. Then I'm going to draw my rivers and solve both equations. My solutions are x equals -7 and x equals +2. No check today. Problem 3. 2x squared plus 19x minus 10 equals 0. Now, this problem is going to look a little bit different from the problem before, and that's because here we have a 2 on our term of x squared. It's not going to make it that much more difficult, but it does add an additional thing that we have to consider. That's not erasing, and I'm not sure why. Oh well. Alright, so let's think about the numbers that add to equal -10, or that multiply to equal -10. 1 times -10, -1 times 10, 2 times -5, -2 times +5. And now I'm going to think which of these pairs is going to go into my equation. And that pair is going to be -1 and 10. Where will the -1 go, and where will the 10 go? The 10 needs to go here. The -1 needs to go here. Why? When I multiply my outer terms with the 10 here, the 10 gets multiplied by the 2x. That gives me 20x. When I multiply my inner terms, -1 and x, the -1 gets multiplied by the x, and I get -1x. When I add those together, I get 19x, which is my middle term. Now I'm going to set my factors equal to 0. Now I'm going to draw my river and solve my equations. Here, there's just one more step that I need to do. I'll add +1 to both sides, and then I'll divide both sides by 2. This means that x equals 1/2. Over here, I draw my river, add -10 to both sides, and x equals -10. My two solutions are 1/2 and -10. Problem 4. 3x squared plus 27x plus 42 equals 0. Now, when you're looking at this problem, it might look a little bit intimidating. However, there's something that we can do to make this problem a little bit more manageable. I don't know what this is still doing here, but whatever. Oh, now it goes away as soon as I try to make a smiley. Whatever. Okay, but there's something I can do to make this a little bit more manageable. What do you think that is? What could I do to make this easier for me to work with? One thing I notice is that with 3x squared, 27x, and 42, all of those numbers are divisible by 3. Therefore, before I factor this into binomials, I can just factor out a 3 first. 3x squared divided by 3 would give me x squared. 27x divided by 3 would give me 9x. And 42 divided by 3 would give me 14. Now this is a lot more manageable. So now I can just factor this and just carry down that 3. Which pair is going to go in the blanks? Two and 7. The reason why is because when I multiply x and 2, I'll get 2x, and when I multiply 7 and x, my inner terms, I get 7. I add them up, and I get 9x. Then I'm going to set my factors equal to 0. Notice I just kind of ignored this 3. It doesn't have an x on it, and therefore it doesn't help me find the value of x. So I can kind of just ignore that 3 for right now. Now I'm going to draw my river and solve. Those are my two solutions. No check today. Problem 5. 2x squared plus 16x plus 14 equals 0. Now, once again, like the last problem, this looks a little bit, immediately there's a lot more work that we don't really have to do. We can make this problem easier for us. What am I going to do to make this problem easier? Well, all of these numbers are even, so I know that I can divide out a 2 from each of those. So I'll put a 2 on the outside of my parentheses, and on the inside I'll just put what's left over. X squared, 8x, 14 divided by 2 is 7. Now I'll factor this. Once again, I carried down my 2 into my next line of my problem. It's a weird arrow. Go with it. I'll think about the numbers that multiply to equal 7. And I will choose 1 and 7 to go in the blanks. 1 times x equals 1x, and 7 times x equals 7x. When I add them together, I get 8x, which is my middle term. Now I'm going to write my two equations for my two factors. Once again, I kind of ignore this 2 that's on the outside. It doesn't have an x with it, so it doesn't help me solve for x. Then I solve. My two solutions are x equals -7 and x equals -1, and once again, no checks today. Alright, to Khan Academy, in this order. Solving quadratics by factoring. I think in the beginning I said equations, but it might just be solving quadratics. You can try either. So maybe the word equations in there, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. And then you're going to do all your mastery challenges, your extra credit, if you want to, that's listed in your packet, and then you can work on your homework or take a nap. The end.